Welcome to the High Rise Podcast, presented by Headset, the leading data and analytics company for the cannabis industry.
Welcome back to the High Rise, a laid-back, data-back conversation where we talk all things cannabis, from U.S. MSOs to Canadian LPs, products, and market analysis through the lens of data. We are at a very special South by Southwest Poolside Session. We've got a nice little inflatable pool that we're podcasting next to kind of making do, because unfortunately, we don't have a real pool.
We don't have a real pool, but we have pool rules
that are
right. Keeping us in line here, making sure we don't dive run or anything else. So.
I love it. Well, my name is Cy Scott with Headset, and I'm joined as always by Emily Paxia of Poseidon.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the High Rise.
And this special poolside session, we have Valda Coryat, Chief Marketing Officer of Trulieve. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we've had Kim on from Trulieve in the past, too, the CEO, which is fun. So we're happy to have another.
But it wasn't a poolside.
It was not poolside.
So you get the poolside. That's extra special.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I do feel special.
Good.
I feel all warm like in Florida.
Yeah. I wouldn't know, being from Seattle, what that is like, warm weather.
Yeah, you're a SoCal boy.
That's
you know
true.
What's up.
That's true. Well, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and your background and your role at Trulieve?
Sure. So I've been Chief Marketing Officer at Trulieve since December of 2019.
Wow.
Yeah, 2 years, 4 months and counting. So joined, when we were really mostly Florida, with one dispensary in California and one dispensary in Connecticut. And now we are up to 11 states.
Amazing.
Yes.
So you sit in a really interesting position in this industry because marketing has its own challenges. And I know some of my friends who are in marketing and cannabis are like, well, it's kind of a creative exercise. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that as you've been doing this for a few years.
Yeah. So, I think I was almost made to come into the cannabis space. And I say that because prior to Trulieve, I worked for 10 billion plus companies, traditional CPG, beauty. Also, my last was with Heineken, right? So I saw beer, wine, and spirits. Working in cannabis is not like any other marketing role that I've ever had. I actually borrow from all of that, right?
Sure.
And prior to and between that CPG experience and Trulieve, I also worked for a commodity board, the National Mango Board, which I always like to mention because of the obvious connection between mangoes and cannabis. So I'll let some people's imagination run wild there, but the scientific connection is really myrcene, right? Being a terpene that's found in mangoes, but also found in cannabis. And so, as a marketer, of course, for me anyway, I want to build brands. But quickly, what I also learned is how important, similar to agriculture, right, the quality of the plant is. So from a growing of cannabis, quality flower perspective, that's a source for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'm going to have to pick your brain on how to better cut a mango because
Don't cut it is the answer.
What, you just bite into it like an apple?
You can peel the skin just like you peel a banana if it's ripe.
Yes. Okay. We need to discuss because I cut my hands all the time because I love
I'll
mangoes.
save your hands.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is going to change my life. Okay. But back to the matter at hand. And no wonder because I also like the terpene myrcene and I never actually fully connected that, but I eat an embarrassing amount of mango. Mm-hmm. It's great. So yeah, and one of the things I wanted to ask you is that, with Trulieve being really the MSO that has a female CEO and we're in Women's History Month.
Yes.
I love that social media campaign and some of the swag I've seen around Buy Weed from Women. Did you originate that?
No, definitely did not originate that. I want to give credit where credit is due. There's actually poet Jasmine Mans out of New Jersey, actually. So we are a fan. I am a fan of her poetry, of some of her art, and certainly she started that. She has swag, bags and I actually bought a jacket of hers as well, so that's where it came from.
Oh, what's the website for that? So
I'll give you her Instagram.
Okay, what's her Instagram?
It should be at Poet Jasmine Mans.
Rad. Yeah. Okay, everybody go buy swag that says "Buy Weed from Women." I think it's a really cool concept. Yeah. All right, thank you for clarifying that. I was always curious, and I actually didn't know the source. Mm-hmm. So, what brings you to South by Southwest?
Well, I'll be on a panel tomorrow with some of my colleagues talking about cannabis, the next frontier of CPG. So CPG being consumer packaged goods. And I think that's the race that we're all on, actually. All of the big MSOs are trying to prove that, hey, you can brand within cannabis, make it memorable. And what I like to say is, who's going to get to that $5 billion brand first? And I'm talking product brands, not necessarily the valuation of the companies today.
Well,
yeah, so
we're a far cry from
yeah.
if we're looking today. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, what an awesome panel. Who else is on the panel with you guys?
Oh, gosh, I'd have to look at the names. I know.
Yeah, well, I am moderating, so fantastic moderator. Definitely going to be the highlight of South by Southwest.
I don't know. Do you know anything about brands? What's your authority there?
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a good conversation. I've done a fair amount of writing on CPG on a blog called Cannabis Packaged Goods, and trying to connect the parallels between the two as best I can. And there are many parallels, but there are obviously some very unique aspects to the category of cannabis that cause some differences as well, which I think is pretty exciting. It must be exciting coming from the CPG world.
Yeah. Because nobody's really fully cracked it yet, right? It's very fragmented. It's fragmented by virtue of the regulations in the different states. It's fragmented by maybe no company truly being national yet, right? Third-party brands is such a mix of what's sold in each state that, there's a few that have really solidified a footprint across the country, right? So when something can be as familiar as Coca-Cola, let's say, or Pepsi, I won't pick favorites there. When you see it, the packaging's the same, what to expect. There's a consistency in the experience and everything else. So that, I think, is actually part of the challenge for cannabis. Really, everything is grown within the state, right? We're not allowed to go across state lines. So promising quality and delivering on an experience is quite the challenge, I would say, for my R&D and production counterparts. How do you replicate that?
Yeah. And how do you think about it from a messaging and marketing standpoint when you're navigating these different states that are really kind of silos? And I think about it too with Trulieve's footprint. I was very happy when the acquisition of Harvest occurred, because I was like, okay, Florida and Arizona have kind of some overlap in terms of demographics, and you can talk about different things differently there. But then when you jump into Pennsylvania, or how do you think about the messaging that has to go on when you're reaching into these different markets?
Yeah, so, I think there's a few layers to it, right? So part of it is how developed is the state? Is it 1 to 5 years? Has it been around a decade? Is it med only, or is it med and rec, right? Which, when you see rec enter a market like it did in Arizona, it starts to overtake the sales quite a bit, and med becomes much smaller. There's always some local feel to it as well. Some states actually really honor, and with their dollars, local and small. So can an MSO actually resonate as being a part of the community? That's a big part of it. So again, it's like going beyond just functional product benefits and ensuring that you understand the drivers with the consumer base in each market and still be true to your brand. So we have a brand architecture and a portfolio strategy that allows us to cover really and reach the broadest set of consumers. And then we really, plug and play depending on the state that we're in. So we identify the best mix of products from our portfolio specific to the state and the locality that we're operating in.
That's a really good point about the local aspect of it. And right now I feel like there's a lot of discourse in the Twitterverse and everything about MSOs, and some of the politicians have started to categorize these as the, big business, which is really kind of hilarious, because these are startups essentially. I mean, we've only
every time we enter, we're a startup.
Exactly. And there's so much local engagement in terms of the hiring practices. I mean, it's by nature, you can't offshore this.
That's right.
And you can't out of state it. You can't do any of it. So it's a really interesting paradox that we live in as an industry, where even the biggest businesses, every state you enter is a startup.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess the thing that I would, probably challenge the folks who are anti-MSO is, I guess, are you anti-quality? Right. So, and the reason I say that is not that local can't be quality, but that if you're operating in more locations, there's more opportunity for you to learn and fine tune what you're doing. Yeah. Okay. So if we have a lesson learned, let's say in the state of Florida, in terms of how we grow, because it's all indoor, basically, right? You can transport indoor growing practices to anywhere, right? And so if we've learned over the years in Florida how to grow really good quality flower, we do that everywhere. When we look at, how we are boots on the ground in terms of connecting to the community, whether you're, minority community or the LGBTQ community, there are issues and themes that resonate across every state for those communities. So, we're doing a lot where I would say that being in multiple states gives us more proof points, right? More places to kind of learn and test our way. We're not assuming that we go in and we've got the same formula for every single state. It's a little bit different. So we take what works in other places, we multiply it, right, across the locations, and then we learn. And, it's just really a launch fast, learn, continue, move on, and grow from there.
It's a great framework, and it's great that you're so thoughtful about it, because you're absolutely right. Every market is different. Every state, every province in Canada is slightly different, right? So having like an understanding of that and where Trulieve fits into that equation is critical. I think it's for those that are just trying to scale fast and just treat every market the same. It would never work, right? Or it's proving that it's not working. And I think there's a reason why we're starting to see more MSOs moving out of their core markets, but still haven't made a significant impact in a market like California, right? And I think it's because it's a very complex and complicated market, and being mindful of what does that mean for a brand like Trulieve to come into California. I'm sure it's a big question that you guys have, and takes a lot of time, right? But
we
eventually
just opened in Pasadena. I think it was yesterday.
That's awesome. Congrats.
Oh my God. That's a heavy lift. That market.
Yeah. So
that's a great city for sure.
It's I can't think about Pasadena without thinking about The Graduate. It all takes place.
I always think of Tournament of Roses. Isn't that where it is?
Yeah, the Rose Parade.
Yeah.
That's right.
And also there's this great line in the Steve Martin movie where he's the weatherman, and he's like, there was going to rain in Pasadena, but the council voted and decided against it. So 72 and sunny. And when I think of it, that joke is from like the early 90s. And I'm like thinking about what I know the operators have had to go through to get a door open in Pasadena. Council voted and decided against it. Yeah. A very true concept.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. We think about that too in the parts north of because I'm based in San Francisco in like Marin County. It's like, everybody smokes cannabis in Marin County, and there are no doors because of the NIMBYism of that. And they're like the kids. There's just these misperceptions that continue on.
In California, are you guys bringing your CPG brands to the market, or are you just selling other brands at the moment?
No, today in California, we're 100% third party now.
Got it. And then potentially could transition into some first party. Does Trulieve distribute and sell wholesale, like CPG brands?
We do sell wholesale. We have a wholesale business in Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Colorado, Nevada. So, a number of states, some of which is through the Harvest acquisition.
Right. Yeah, I always think that's such a fascinating piece of the business where you can retail and you have your own brands, almost like private label brands, but at the same time, you're selling it, outside of your door. Through other, potentially competitive retailers. Right?
We also sell our competitors in our doors.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a really different. To have both retail and wholesale in a state like we do in Massachusetts, like we do in Pennsylvania, it's a really interesting dynamic.
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do with just the regulation, and just it's more conducive to do that, right? You need to make sure you have supply, so you're potentially growing your own, and in addition to selling, others.
It's supply. It's also licenses, right? We have a lot of doors, and so we produce. Of course, we're going to produce the maximum amount that we can, but we want to make sure that we meet the demand that's in the market as well. Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Tell us a little bit about the current climate of Florida. From what I understand, it's getting more and more competitive.
Very.
So tell us about the competition in Florida, how you're thinking about it from a marketing standpoint. And then I think we may have some recent updates of some changes going on down in Florida. But
so Florida, as I mentioned, so when I started, I was very heavily focused on Florida, and now I'm more nationally focused, right? But Florida's still hugely important to the company. But we have seen more MSOs actually enter, right, through acquisition. And so you have the main players. You have Curaleaf, you have Certera, which is, I was going to say Netta. They're Netta in Massachusetts. Yeah. Parallel, sorry.
Yeah. I was trying to remember.
You have Curaleaf, you have Parallel, you have Air. You have all of the majors there.
Yep.
And in addition, you also have some OGs, right? So Cookies will be opening up.
Right.
As well. So the environment in Florida has gotten really interesting. And I always smile at people who say, oh, well, Florida's a med market, right? I'm like, have you seen the creative? Mm-hmm. Have you seen how everyone markets in Florida? Because yes, we're med. Yes, we do abide by the state regulations. But there's a lot of snowbirds. So there are people who have residence in Florida who can also be patients, right, but may spend some of their time outside of the state of Florida. We also, I have to say, one of the biggest shifts I've seen, particularly post-COVID, is price promotion. The depth of discounting, it's not driven by us. I remember running deals, and if we ran a 25% off store-wide in 2019, 2020, that was a big deal, right, for us. Now we're watching competitors going 30, 40, 50% off. That was unheard of a year to a year and a half ago, right? So I think the shift happened probably mid-2021. And one of the toughest things as a marketer is when you're trying to preserve brand equity, we don't want to race to the bottom. So what we're doing and how we're thinking about it strategically is there are certain brands within our portfolio that we're going to protect, that we're still not going to promote. But what that means is there's a heavier burden, if you will, right, on the brand managers and us to tell the story. Why should you pay that premium? Is it worth it, right? So in the case of, for example, the Cultivar Collection, which is our premium flower, we have our growers. Our grow team actually goes out on the road. They'll attend some of these industry events. They're meeting customers or patients, as we call them in Florida, and they're telling them how they're actually hand trimming. So they're handling the flower differently, right? We just launched our Primo buds, which is the top of the plant. Sold out this weekend. I won't say how many units, but 90% sell through.
Wow.
Okay, in 2 days, right? So we have to constantly innovate in terms of innovation, not necessarily in the product as flower, but in how we present it to the consumer. We also then have said, you know what, there are some segments of cannabis that honestly are more deal-driven. Vapes. Unfortunately, it's a fact.
Sure.
When you talk about botanical terps, right, it's just more price sensitive. And then, but there are also started hydrocarbon products. And so, again, why should you purchase this? Well, there's a real story behind that technology. And so our live products under the Muse brand can command a premium. So we're picking and choosing and making sure that we protect, right, the brands that have a true reason for being premium or for higher quality. But we also stand behind all of our products. So we have a 100% return policy. If someone comes in and they're not satisfied with the product, we stand behind it, regardless of what price tier it's in.
I always thought that was a great policy. I think a lot of people don't realize, I'm glad you touched on how dangerous promotion can be, because when you get to the consumer that the driving thing for them is price, there's very little loyalty.
That's
in
right.
that. So it's good to have it as an offering so that you're capturing that revenue possibility. But it's also like for the return customers or patients, it is really important to have the other hook, which is about brand, which is usually about quality or a certain experience that you can associate with it. So it's good that you guys are paying attention to that.
Could I mention one more thing?
Yes,
I have to. So
Please.
we also are not abandoning, say, the program in Florida started with capsules, right, and tinctures and more medicinal leaning forms. So we have the Momenta brand that is rolling out in Florida, but that is our wellness leaning brand. And I'm very proud to announce, because the press release went out today, so I can say it, that we actually have a spokesperson for Momenta. His name is Ethan Zahn. He was on Survivor. He's a 2-time cancer survivor as well. He'll be running the Boston Marathon coming up. And of course, cannabis is a part of his daily wellness routine, but also as a part of his training regimen. And he'll be wearing Momenta branding.
Very cool.
Yes, along his training journey for the Boston Marathon. So we talk a lot about flower. We talk a lot about concentrates, but we've got some great tinctures, RSO tinctures. We've got capsules, CBN, for example, right? Minor cannabinoids and so forth that we're also rolling out. So we haven't forgotten about that med side, or wellness, as I call it, wellness side. I tell everybody, come on, it's like you take your vitamins, your multivitamins, right? Consider it that daily supplement.
Wellness. We talk a lot about that. Man, I could have used some cannabis back when I was running the marathons.
Yeah, recovery, right? The topicals.
Yeah, definitely.
As well.
Anti-inflammation. I feel like I was inflamed through the whole training process.
Well, there's a whole subset with athletes and cannabis. I mean, you're very involved in Athletes for Care.
Yep,
Is that
I'm
right?
on the board of Athletes for Care. It's a game changer for the athletes to hear about their process of being able to get off of opiates and use this as a wellness. It's actually an ongoing path to avoiding pain, but also then once you have the pain to help to alleviate that.
And I learned that from the CrossFit community. My husband's a big CrossFitter.
Oh boy.
And they, and that and competitive weightlifting. That's his thing.
Oh, wow.
And so, they absolutely, I mean, inflammation, as you said, rest and recovery, all of that. It's all a part of it.
Yeah, I definitely am, after I get off the Peloton in the morning, rolling various cannabis products all over my body. It helps. It really does. Yeah. But even I tend to be a klutz and I break my toes, and I've found nothing that
she admits it.
That help. Yeah, it's just my life. But like recently, I just did it again. And anyway, long story short, the cannabis topicals, that's how you know it really works. It's not a placebo effect.
That's right.
It really does have a positive impact. So.
Yeah, and I think athletes, it's so great for further normalization of our industry, right? And just kind of getting away from the stigma and how, still so much of the world thinks about cannabis. And you're showing top performing athletes, people that can run the Boston Marathon, that are talking about their usage and, how it helps them. I think that's key, absolutely. So real exciting that was announced today.
Yes. The press release went out on that. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, we'll have to touch on that on the panel tomorrow, I think.
Sure.
Yeah, let's do it. Well, thanks so much, Valda, for joining us.
You're very welcome.
This was great.
Great.
Yeah, South by's pool session, first one of many. So, very excited to have you here.
Yeah.
Looking forward to our panel tomorrow.
Me too, actually. I'm looking forward to the discussion, and I feel bad that I didn't have everybody's name top of mind. So
here we go.
Oh yeah, and I didn't help you out.
I'll be joined by Trulieve, of course, Sydney Chernish, also Kristen Rudolph at GTI. Right?
Oh, nice.
So yeah.
I might actually have to go to that panel.
I'll have to drag you in, kicking and screaming.
I'm not doing. I only do the music events and my own panel. No.
Well, maybe you come to ours. We'll come to yours.
All right, we'll see what's up. All right, thank you so much for coming. It was so great to meet you.
Nice
and to
meeting
have
you
here.
too.
And I'm glad we'll be seeing you around the industry as we say.
That's right, exactly. I enjoyed it. Thanks so much, and thanks for the poolside environment. It feels very familiar.
Thanks for listening to the High Rise Podcast, presented by Headset. For more information on Headset, visit headset.io.